Thanks. I love that picture. And I hope that that's exactly what happens with OTT. But let's go one step forward. Let's go into VR. It's like stuff that has not been talked about, definitely talked about out here. It's just barely about being talked about in the US. But if you must know something, the reason why Netflix is not because they happened to do things, ahead of. They did that, and they had insights into getting into areas which were not traditionally their comfort zone. Now, when I look around, actually what gets to me is I'm pretty blunt about it. The enablers out here in India, the gatekeepers, the CEOs of the OTT space, these are the ones who should be thinking. They should be the ones looking at how to go ahead, what new ideas, and then they say, oh, but that's Netflix. Netflix came in, and Netflix is a threat, and it's not a threat. No, Netflix did what they had to do. With a rant out of the way, let's see how we could probably look at streaming. So everyone's in it, and how do you differentiate yourselves? How do you get there? And I think the solution is, of course, loyalty. We know it's obvious, it's loyalty. You build brand loyalty to your platform. Let's look at how VR can possibly help in that situation. One thing is VR, if it's enabled, it will make your platform sticky. Now, again, it's very hard to explain this, but I've experienced it because Netflix has a VR app. Hulu has a VR app. You put on, for example, the flight when I was coming in out here, waiting at the, it's an international flight, so I sit at the airport for a long time. I put my VR headset on, and I'm watching Netflix. I'm watching Russell Peters, but not on a 5-inch screen. I'm actually watching him on a cinema screen. So that's what I get, and that's what Netflix thought about when they VR-enabled their app. So why did they do it? They know, of course, probably not everyone's going to be sitting around with headsets at this point. But what some of the people said earlier is the people who are consuming content right now are the younger generation, like the 20-year-olds, the 30-year-olds. They are going to start making films. We as content producers are going to be outdated because our thinking is still about what worked in film, what worked in narrative, what worked in linear formats. Now, these are the people who are actually putting on headsets. It's growing in every week. This presentation actually gets old in 2 weeks from now because I'll have to take out some of the slides because it's already gone there. So audience immersion. Would you want to watch Bahubali if it was premiering on OTT on a 5-inch screen with your headphones on? Or would you like to slide into a headset and have a virtual theater? And that's where it's coming from. That's why Netflix has Netflix VR. Amazon Prime, by the way, got found out because they put a job ad and one of the publications picked it up that they're looking at engineering to enable Netflix Prime VR because Hulu's done it. So that's Netflix. And some ideas, get it? And what can we do? What can we do? So that's the Netflix VR app. You put on the headset, you've got like this 2-meter screen out there where you're actually viewing your regular OTT content. It's not VR yet, but that's the first step. What can I do to make this whole thing sticky? One idea is, okay, tie up with Vodafone. I'm in a virtual world. You've put me in a virtual world. I look to my left in my real living room when I'm watching TV. The TV's there, and I've got my phone at the side, my landline. So I'm talking, and if I want to make a call, I just pick up the physical phone and I call. In VR, you can do a lot more. It's all VoIP. So some vague ideas out there, but that's what starts the ball rolling and thinking. Get a tie-up with Vodafone. Your virtual phone, you pick it up, and you got free international calls maybe for a while. You can't do that in real life. You could do it over VoIP or with a tie-up with an actual brand like that. So things like that is what can be done to build this platform that people keep coming to. Hulu, by the way, again, is one step ahead. Like I said, you buy one movie ticket for a presentation on Hulu, you can invite your friends in. So when we are talking about how VR is actually alienating people because you want to be sitting in your living room and not put a headset on and your family's not there, no. What's happening is cell phones are already alienating people. You go to Singapore, you get onto the subway, everyone's like glued in, and by some magic force of sixth sense that's being done in their head, they don't crash into each other, but they're all walking around like that, and I don't know how they navigate, but that's what it is. It is alienating. We are all watching, I think, at home right now. The kids are watching their stuff, you are watching your stuff, and probably the grandmother is watching TV because it's easier to watch TV for. But what VR does is it's letting you all come together. So Oculus, for example, has already enabled Oculus films where you can buy a blockbuster film for like $30. But what they're not promoting right now, but is there, is you get 4 free tickets. So I could be watching it in here and invite my friend over from, let's say, the US or Australia or family out there, and we're all sitting in the same kind of virtual room. I look to my left, I see the avatar of my mom or my best friend out here. So it's actually building a community. What it can let you do is, in case your husband or your wife is talking in real life when you watch in a cinema, you can mute them. You can't do that in real life. But you're talking to each other because it's your phone, and the headset is all connected, so you're having like a whole thing out there. And this is changing. This is happening as we speak. It's like every month, new people are getting onto the platform. So this was announced, I believe, last week. Yup TV said they've launched this mini theater thing where they're going to have first day, first shows. It might not be blockbusters, but it's definitely films that are being released that don't have theater lineups. They're actually trying to do that. So that's exactly what can happen out here. You can do that with VR. Give them an incentive, like buy one of the tickets, and that's how you get subscribers to actually pay for it. So buy a ticket and get 3 more free, and people can view it in there. The idea is make audiences check in into your OTT platform. You've got Hotstar, you've got, I know, you guys know it better, you've got all these people. What are they doing? They're just fighting each other. They're going to end. Netflix, or I predict, or Geo, or one of the big guys is just going to swallow them up. If that's the plan, great. If that's like a complete startup thing. But what's happening with established OTT platforms I see out here is the startup mentality. Okay, we'll have an exit clause probably, because it's not going to survive. Original content is one. The other one is build a community platform. So some other sillier ideas. So there's an EPG lying there in VR. People can pick it up, and maybe they get some coupons and stuff like that, which you can dynamically change. You're actually paying people back in another way to check in, and you want to, if they're paying a subscription fee, great. Give it to them back in some other ways. Use Facebook's API to actually let you watch a movie and click on your friends list and invite your friend in for a conversation. And this is what's happening out there, and that's why, in the US and in the West, it's actually hailing out there. In short, build community to be able to monetize your content. Facebook knows. I mean, everyone thinks they got an OTT thing. Facebook has launched Facebook TV. In June, Facebook TV is going to be a thing. They are actually going to be pumping in money for original content and launching it in June. So while Vodafone and while everyone else is probably saying, no, we're an enabler or we're this, great, that's great. But Facebook is a completely different thing. And they're still saying they are not a media company, which they're right. They are saying we're not a media company, but they're going to be doing TV right now. But they're saying, no, we are social. We are bringing people together. And that's just one little thing that we're thrown in out there to bring people together. So that's kind of the mentality that probably the OTT providers need to think of, from the content production to the platforms which are being, which are currently out there. Move one step ahead before it's too late. I understand right now, technically, yes, we talk about tier 1, we talk about tier 2 cities where you don't going to have Gear VRs and you're going to have VR. But it's coming. Every day, prices are going to come down, and we're talking about like months to a year. One of the big things is, of course, why VR? It offers emotional engagement. So this is a short film.
Dancing to me, I think it's the truest form of expression. I feel a lot more comfortable expressing, especially hard emotions, through movement.
I was a dancer since I was 4 years old. I was tripping and I was falling, and I didn't even know what multiple sclerosis was. I still do some choreography now with other people with disabilities. Every day you have to just say to yourself, I can still do this.
With this dance, what I want to get across is just a feeling of transcendence. With the 360 camera, it gives the chance for someone to see what I see, experience what I experience.
All right. Uh-oh.
Have a surprise.
No. Are you ready for this? Oh my God. I like the way your arms end. I dream sometimes and I see that. Thank you. It was beautiful.
I'm just grateful to be in this situation. Like, this is, how often do you get to do that?
So the message on that was, that's a slide I took from another masterclass I do on content creation, but it's probably relevant. What VR lets you do is it lets you emotionally connect. You're that close. Even in an IMAX theater, you're sitting physically away from the screen. It's a huge screen, but you have distance in you. In VR, you're in there. If someone were to come to me for commissioning content and I was on the commissioning board of, let's say, Hotstar or somewhere else where all the money is, and what Netflix is doing is, there is a division that is looking at, can this be a bigger thing than just an OTT film or stuff like that? And that's what needs to be done, probably. Not every film is going to be good for VR, but if you can open it up like that, you're future-proofing your content. And I'll show you why and how. This one is relevant for all for my marketing things. It's like, yeah, brands, they think that, you know, just because it's VR, people are going to engage, and it's not. So I'll give you a sneak peek at some of this. The most important thing, okay, so VR, great, you know, and how do we monetize with it? Did you play this video? So that looks like a really fancy guy, camera operator, who's doing a thing, and he's panning all the way up to the thing. Well, guess what? That's actually VR. It's just that you're capturing at 6K, you're capturing everything around you. There is nothing to stop an editor and a director from actually taking a director's cut and making it common for a cell phone, for cable TV, because if you're capturing stuff at 6K, you can definitely get on an HD stream. And it is legacy compatible. So the people, the gatekeepers, again, the ones who need to be trained, is the ones who, when you go up to them and say, okay, you know, it's a VR thing, oh, there's no market in India. You know, VR is like, it's not. No, you are actually future-proofing your content. You're giving people right now a HD stream that can play on any platform. The moment you hit your VR switch on your app or your thing, people can look around. So it is there. It's just about how you do it. You're creating once and you're future-proofing it. You can have multiple views of the same content over and over. So it is legacy compatible. It's not a different thing. Of course, the other stuff, once you're in a headset, it completely makes sense. I exactly know where you're looking. The biggest thing in the old days of advertising was how many eyeballs, how many eyeballs. Today, when you walk down a mall or you walk down, you know, any public place, no one's looking at the screens out there, so forget the eyeballs. All the plasma screens around, everyone's into their own thing. With VR, because the headset is tracking your movement, you can pinpoint exactly where someone's looking. It does bring up ethics issues, but you know, okay, the guy was looking too long in that place, but you can use that data with consent probably. You can go into stuff like multi-threaded storylines for content creators. So this is important stuff. The news, now everyone does want to say they're doing VR, but VR is not sticking a camera in the back office or in the studio out there and capturing it. It's boring. I don't want to see your guys working around. This is what happens really in the Middle East. Oh, we ticked the VR, we did VR box. So we put a camera in the studio and we got the reporter guy out here and some other people are shuffling around. That's boring content. That's not VR. What people like the BBC, what CNN is doing is actually taking a news piece of content, and the graphics team is making you feel that you're in there so they can create a virtual reality situation. So they're taking current news, like maybe a hunger strike or the effects of hunger, and they're actually making VR content out of it. That's what news channels should be doing. You know, that makes it topical. That could then be content that goes on to other stuff as well. Deepak, how are we doing for time? We're okay? Okay. All right, I'll speed up. I read this the other day. It was, I think, one of the reporters out here. I'll read it for you in case it's like, we would actually like to track how much time it takes for an office goer driving from Churchgate to Bandra, reaching his home, say, in Borivali, and bring this to the notice of concerned authorities. That's the report of Faye DeSouza. So this is, this enables you. VR enables you to actually do that. You could actually feel that you're actually driving out there. So that's news content being made relevant. That's what you can do, and that's what you can build stickiness to your platform. It doesn't have to be all sad stuff. VR is definitely fun, and thankfully, Bahubali showed the way. And now people can actually talk. You can actually talk to producers, and you can actually talk to them and say, there is a thing for VR. So I would say future-proof your content, and basically there are multiple areas where you can aggregate content, you can produce content, and then you can redistribute that. Are you an OTT platform? Would you like to have your same content in cinemas? Yes, cinema lobbies are now all moving to VR. IMAX, the biggest cinema chain, I mean, they only talk huge screens, has launched IMAX VR because they're seeing where it's going. So in the lobbies, they've got VR headsets. Dreamscape, invested by Spielberg, is another chain that's opened up. In India, PVR is already looking ahead. So your content which you're creating for OTT can also be played back on this, and that's cross-platform. It's legacy compatible, so it can be played on regular TV right now. So top left is the IMAX VR Center. This one's PVR, and that's in Dubai somewhere. They're still into the gaming thing. This is the future of cinema. So this is, if you're creating content for OTT, create it for this also. This is a short film. Kind of get the idea of what's happening, and like if you're making a film like Bahubali and all that, then start thinking of this. Netflix is commissioning content that is giving studios a run for their money, but they're all thinking how much more can we maximize this, how can we go franchise, how can we go parallel into the other genres, and that's a whole combination of content on an OTT platform enabled by VR that will actually drive it going forward. Because don't forget, at every point, the newer generation is watching on mobile, and they're going to be the ones creating films, and they're going to dictate how long it is, whether it branches out, stuff like that. So Make in India is good, but why not have it made by India and exported out? The other thing that you face a lot is like, okay, it's a great concept, but it will not work in India. And why is that thinking even there? Build it out here in Hindi, but make it dubbable. From the whole day I've been hearing Narcos, Narcos, Narcos. Yeah, so that's a point, case in point. Build it for a world audience, and then it will, make it work in India. Don't just keep putting the same masala stuff again and again and again. This is an opportunity to grow differently, and I suppose that's the end of my rant. And we've not even spoken about AR yet, and it's another area. Some of the stuff that I've been doing, just quickly, that's for the government of Abu Dhabi up there. That's for Panasonic Labs, so I do workshops there. That's for Google, enabling advertising agencies and all to understand VR. That's another area. But the big advertising agencies are completely lost with digital. Forget VR, they're completely lost with digital. So they're all coming in together. Thanks.